Today we're going to talk about shock briefly. So we'll be doing in two sessions. First session will cater to shock in general and few of the subtypes in the classification. And then in the second session we will deal with septic shock and hemorrhagic shock as a whole briefly. So what is shock? Shock is defined as a state of cellular and tissue hypoxia with either reduced oxygen delivery or poor oxygen utilization or increased oxygen consumption with circulatory failure and poor perfusion. So that is shock. It may be initially reversible but becomes irreversible if left untreated and eventually leads to multi-organ failure and death. So what are the types of shock? So we have hypovolemic shock, where the total blood volume is reduced due to various causes. We have cardiogenic shock. The blood flow is reduced due to an intrinsic problem of the heart muscle or its valves. Then we have distributive shock. Here the afterload is reduced, affecting the circulation. This includes septic shock, anaphylactic shock, neurogenic shock, adrenal crisis. And the fourth variety is obstructive shock. Here there is impedance to the either inflow or outflow of blood into or out of the heart. So the pathophysiology of shock. Any cause of shock can result in low cardiac output, and once this happens, this leads to vasoconstriction, which occurs to perfuse the vital organs like the heart and the brain. Then tachypnea occurs to increase the oxygen saturation. Peripheral veins constrict to divert blood from the splanchnic system to the vital organs in order to increase the perfusion of vital organs. Then the renal blood flow reduces, which reduces the glomerular filtration rate and the urine output. When this happens, the renin-angiotensin mechanism gets activated, and that causes vasoconstriction and aldosterone release. This leads to further salt and water retention. Then antidiuretic hormone is released and the urine output further decreases. If the shock still persists, then the cardiac output falls further. Then hypotension and tachycardia occurs. Hypoxia and metabolic acidosis sets in. There is release of cardiac depressants and eventually cardiac failure occurs. So this is a pathophysiology of shock in general, irrespective of the cause. Now, hypoxia can separately result in anaerobic metabolism, lactic acidosis. So this causes the sodium and calcium to enter the cell, resulting in hyponatremia and hypocalcemia. Similarly, potassium exits the cell, resulting in hyperkalemia. And this leads to sick cell syndrome. Simultaneously, you have the platelets which get activated to form clots in various places, and this results in disseminated intravascular coagulation or DIC, and when that happens, this results in further bleeding and eventual total circulatory failure. So we have three pathophysiological processes, one resulting in the eventual cardiac failure, then another one leads to sick cell syndrome, and the third part resulting in total circulatory failure. Now the stages of shock. We have the stage of hypoperfusion and hypoxia. You have stage of compensatory shock, stage of decompensatory shock, and stage of irreversible shock. Now in the first stage, the aerobic metabolism changes to anaerobic and it results in lactic acidosis. In the stage of compensatory shock, the noradrenaline, renin-angiotensin system, and antidiuretic hormone are released, causing vasoconstriction of organs like the GIT to divert blood to the vital organs like the heart, lungs and brain. In the stage of decompensatory shock, this occurs only if the shock persists. The compensatory mechanisms fail and there is poor cell perfusion. There is raised intracellular sodium and decreased intracellular potassium. That means hyponatremia, hypocalcemia and hyperkalemia. Microcirculation fails and leads to failure of kidneys, livers and lungs, liver and lungs. Then this is followed by the stage of irreversible shock, where there is loss of cellular ATP metabolism, and this leads to multiple organ dysfunction syndrome or MODS and multi-organ failure. Now, the investigations that are routinely done in any case of shock, it begins with a complete blood count, ESR, blood grouping with RH typing, serum electrolytes, blood urea creatinine and liver function test. This is standard for any case of shock. Now, along with this, you do a prothrombin time and activated partial thromboplastin time, that is known as PT and APTT, to assess the coagulation profile, and arterial blood gas analysis are the additional investigations. Now, a chest X-ray and ECG to look for focus or any cardiac pathology. Now, if you have a discharge or a fluid for analysis, you can do culture of the pus or urine or blood or sputum depending on the focus. Serum lactate can be done. Ultrasound of the affected part also is done for evaluation. CT, MRI of the part when you suspect a septic focus. So these are the routine investigations done to identify the cause and severity of shock. So what is the management of shock? So the guidelines are actually up to 3 points. So you have to stabilize the patient with the initial resuscitation, irrespective of the cause. Then you have to evaluate the patient for the cause and the severity of shock. Then you treat the specific cause to achieve the cure. So initial resuscitation means assessment of the airway, breathing, circulation, disability and exposure, that is A, B, C, D, E. Then initiate the rapid fluid replacement with either plasma or normal saline or Ringer's lactate through 2 wide bore IV cannulas. If it is blood loss, then you can correct it by blood transfusion. Now, if it is other causes, you can give inotropic agents like dopamine, dobutamine and adrenaline, especially in the case of septic shock. Now, for the acid-base balance, you can correct it by using sodium bicarbonate. Now, at the same time, you will be performing the investigations to assess the severity and cause. That means the earlier mentioned blood investigations and imaging investigations. Then you monitor the BP, pulse, heart rate, respiratory rate and the urine output hourly and periodically. Monitor the CVP and the PCWP, pulmonary capillary wedge pressure. Assess for any focus of infection in case of septic shock by sending the culture studies as well. Now, steroids like hydrocortisone can be done to improve perfusion and to reduce systemic inflammatory effects. Antibiotics for the control of infection and analgesics for pain. Control the diabetes and to treat the ketoacidosis. Maintain urine output at more than 0.5 ml per kilogram per body weight per hour. Then ICU care, oxygen inhalation, ventilatory support when required. Even hemodialysis can be done. So it depends on the type of the shock that you're dealing with. So this is the management of shock in general. Now we will discuss several subtypes that we have mentioned earlier in the classification. So we have the hypovolemic shock. So this is a type of shock that occurs due to reduction in the total blood volume. This may be due to hemorrhage or bleeding from open wounds, open fractures, vessel injury, liver injury, splenic injury, hemothorax. Similarly, it can be due to burns, due to evaporative loss or dehydration due to burns. It can be due to profuse vomiting and diarrhea. The pathophysiology is similar as mentioned earlier. Now the stages or the types of hypovolemia, we have the covert compensated hypovolemia, we have the overt compensated hypovolemia and decompensated hypovolemia. Now covert compensated hypovolemia means that there is only mild hypovolemia. The blood volume is reduced by 10 to 15%. There will not be any significant change in the heart rate and cardiac output. Now overt compensated hypovolemia, here the blood volume is reduced by 15 to 40%. Patient has cold peripheries, tachycardia, tachypnea, confusion, anxiety, and mild metabolic acidosis. But the BP is still maintained. Now, in decompensated hypovolemia, the blood volume is reduced by more than 40%. Patient has hypotension, tachycardia, sweating, tachypnea, oliguria, severe metabolic acidosis, and drowsiness. If untreated, it goes into irreversible shock, multiple organ dysfunction syndrome, and eventual death. Now, the next subtype is cardiogenic shock. So, in this type of shock, there is a reduced blood flow due to an intrinsic problem in the heart muscle or its valves. So, there is circulatory failure causing decreased forward flow, leading to tissue hypoxia in the setting of adequate intravascular volume. So, here the systolic BP may be less than 90 millimeters of mercury for 30 minutes. The cardiac index may be less than 2.2 liters per minute per meter square area. The pulmonary capillary pressure may be raised by 15 mm mercury. So, these are certain characteristics that are seen in cardiogenic shock. Now, the cause is usually an acute myocardial infarction or heart attack, acute carditis. These are the things that can result in cardiogenic shock. Now, obstetric shock, it's also called cardiac compression shock. So, it's an obstetric type of shock with a reduced preload to the heart, probably due to acute massive pulmonary embolism, pericardial tamponade, tension pneumothorax, air embolism, or trauma to the heart. So, here the heart is not able to pump properly due to an external factor which is surrounding the heart. Now, distributive shock. So, under this, in the case of vasovagal shock, there is sudden dilatation of peripheral and splanchnic vessels causing reduced cardiac output and shock. Neurogenic shock. Here the shock is due to spinal cord injury, which again causes dilatation of splanchnic vessels. There is hypotension without tachycardia, which worsens to result in shock and cardiac arrest. Now, adrenal crisis, it's a type of shock which occurs if the adrenal gland is deteriorating, as in primary adrenal insufficiency, secondary adrenal insufficiency, inadequately treated adrenal insufficiency. So, in all of these cases, there is adrenal crisis. It presents with headache, weakness, fatigue, lethargy, joint pain, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, fever with chills and rigor will set in later, and eventually there is hypotension, dehydration, tachycardia, tachypnea, confusion, and coma. So, all these forms, that is vasovagal shock, neurogenic shock, and adrenal crisis, are slightly different from hypovolemic shock, obstructive shock, and cardiogenic shock. Now, the next variety is anaphylactic shock. Again, it is a type of distributive shock. This usually follows either administration of drugs like penicillin, anesthetic agents, bee sting or insect sting, snake bites, or ingestion of food items like shellfish, nuts. It's a type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. Certain antigens will combine with immunoglobulin E of the mast cells and basophils and release histamine and large amounts of SRSA or slow releasing substance or anaphylaxis. Now, this will result in generalized rashes, edema, bronchospasm, laryngeal edema, and eventually respiratory distress, hypotension, and shock. It is a type of distributive shock, just like vasovagal shock, neurogenic shock, and adrenal crisis. So, this much is for this session. In the next session, we will deal with septic shock, again, which is a type of distributive shock, and we will deal with hemorrhagic shock. Thank you.